in two minds about Boy Missing. Part of me liked part of it, and the other half of it I found to be a little disappointing and a bit of a cop-out. Now, I can't explain why that is without giving spoilers, but I will just say that something was revealed at one point, and it made it seem a little less dramatic and a little less intense. I can see why they did it, because it's all about how one action, well, my interpretation is that it's all about how one action can lead to something quite catastrophic. And that's interesting, but I feel like it just felt like a cop-out. I might explain that towards the end with a spoiler warning, but I'll just say it was alright, but it's not the direction I personally would have wanted. So this film was released in 2016, Spanish language film directed by I'm going to try that one again. Targarona, written by Oriol, Paulo and Lara Sendim. I should point out I have no Spanish in my vocabulary, blatantly, obviously. But I've never had a problem with subtitles. In fact, I quite enjoy subtitles. This is basically about a boy. I'm not going to read. I was considering reading the description from IMDb, but I think it gives away too much. At least too much of the bits that I enjoyed. This young boy is found wandering alone on a road, and his face is bloody and cut. And to begin with, he won't say what happened. And there's a little bit of suspense surrounding that. His mother happens to be an attorney, and his mother tries to coax the story out of him. And what's particularly interesting, and I don't know why they made this decision, or if they just found the actor and worked with it, but he's actually a deaf character. He talks with sign language, which, I think was a nice addition to the narrative if they decided on it, but I also think it's kind of nice if they just found an actor who was good at the role and he just happened to be deaf and they incorporated it into the character. I'm not sure which way it happened, but either way, it doesn't hinder the story if you don't speak sign language. I don't know any sign language. And it definitely gave it a more emotional aspect. I have to say that Victor, the young boy who's played by Marc Domenech, is brilliant. Fantastic performance. He plays the scared young vulnerable little boy really well. And I found his performance to be really great. As the narrative progresses, we learn things about what happened. And to begin with, what happened seemed quite intense. But then it seemed not as dramatic as it could have been, not as interesting. And as I said, a bit of a cop-out for the narrative, because the narrative became less interesting the more we found out. Now, maybe that's just me, maybe that's just what I look for in a narrative. You may say otherwise. As I said, there is a reason why it's told that way, because it shows that one thing led to another, that led to something, a side story that begins to get quite intense. And I really, I'm probably not making a lot of sense, because I can't say it without spoiling it. But basically, the main narrative becomes less dramatic and less interesting, but it does have a knock-on effect that's quite powerful and quite moving. So it's not all bad. It's very atmospheric. I think the acting is great. The narrative, up until the point where I think it shifted direction, was very enjoyable. And that's probably about halfway through. So it's a good chunk of time where I was really emotionally invested in this. But then it changed direction, the tone shifted, it felt like a completely different film with a different target audience, and I stopped enjoying it as much. I can still appreciate, how tense it was, the use of sound effects was brilliant, the use of shadowing, fantastic. Camera work with some particularly bloody scenes was great, but I will say, if you have ever owned a bull terrier, or like dogs of any kind, it can be quite difficult to watch at times. Not for the most part, it's just a small portion of it, but I wish they'd kept those bits out. You may be thinking, well, what's that got to do with Boy Missing? Well, my point exactly, it's a completely different feel once it gets to a certain point, and I just don't appreciate that kind of mixing of the subgenres. But that's just me. In general, it's not a bad film. Each half of the film is well produced, well directed, well acted. The tones are just very different. Would I recommend it? Sure. If it's your kind of thing, if you like thrillers, Give it a go and let me know what you think. It's not the best. I feel let down by the second half. But for the most part, I'm glad I've seen it.